United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks.
I hate being on camera.
Oh, you're okay.
I will never be in front of a camera.
Okay.
Unless it's forced. Even then, I don't like it. I actively avoid cameras.
For the public who is here, this is your opportunity to.
Oh, I signed up. I signed up.
Well, then come on up. Thank you, and if the court please know, you obviously, but for our record, if you could state your name.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Melissa Rao, District 3 Director with the North Harris County Regional Water Authority. I'm here on behalf of myself. Last month, the North Harris County Regional Water Authority presented your staff and board with clear documented reasons why our surface water conversion schedule is now more than 5 years behind, and none of these reasons were within our control. COVID shutdowns, halted projects, supply chain failures causing material shortages and delays, easement acquisitions that now take years, and the city of Houston's delays with the Northeast Water Purification plant to push the entire region back. These weren't excuses, they were documented realities. Yet in your discussion afterwards, not one board member acknowledged any of it. Instead, the immediate answer was predictable: buy education credits. So they're not using education credits? Buy education credits. Director Ron Graham from our board said it plainly during our last meeting. I encourage you to watch the video if you haven't seen it. Those education kits were a total waste of money. Both school districts threw them in the trash. We don't need to buy anymore. So suggesting we buy credits again is not only ineffective, it avoids the core issue. It does nothing to solve a 5-year construction deficit. That tells me this board is operating inside a regulatory bubble that no longer reflects the actual conditions water authorities are dealing with. The mandates, deadlines, and penalties your board imposes were never designed around affordability. They were built around a rigid timeline, no matter what the real world obstacles are, and no matter what it costs ratepayers. Your board issues mandates and penalties, but provides none of the resources needed to meet them. That is the definition of an unfunded mandate. And I want to note, never mind. Ratepayers are already struggling with inflation, high taxes, rising insurance, and increasing utility costs. And the Subsidence District's answer continues to be buy more credits, pay more penalties, absorb more debt. That's not sustainable, and it's not responsible governance. The North Harris County Regional Water Authority is asking for a partnership, not penalties, for acknowledgement, not dismissal, for solutions that match actual conditions, not outdated assumptions. Buying credits is not a construction plan. Rigid deadlines do not build pipelines, but reasonable flexibility does, and we have already demonstrated that we are committed to finishing this conversion responsibly. Unreasonable deadlines don't change reality. You can't reverse COVID, you cannot undo supply chain collapse, you cannot erase the Houston plant delays. But you can choose to be a partner instead of an enforcer. You can acknowledge documented facts, and you can avoid pushing unnecessary financial burdens onto homeowners who had no part in causing these delays. My responsibility and your responsibility is to the people who pay the bills, and I will continue advocating for them until the regulatory process matches the world we are actually living in. And if I can take a few more seconds. Lastly, regarding flexibility, I've got a question for the board regarding pumpage aggregation. Under the Subsidence rules, does a well owner have any ability to average pumpage across multiple years or to bank unused pumpage from prior years? I'm not quite sure, but for everything I've seen, compliance is measured strictly year to year with no flexibility, even when total groundwater use over several years would be well within limits. If that is correct, then this policy forces penalties based on timing, not on actual groundwater impact. I would ask the board to revisit this because multi-year averaging is standard in other regulatory systems and would provide well owners a realistic, stable path to compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa. We appreciate that comment. That takes us to, item 3 on our agenda, our oath of office. And I think we have one person. Pete, are you? I'm in.
State your name and say
I, Pete Cote,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of
the duties of
the office of
the office of
Director,
Director,
Harris-Galveston Subsidence District,
Harris-Galveston Subsidence District,
Board of Directors
Board of Directors
of the State of Texas,
of the State of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So,
Thank you. Will you sign up?
thank you.
All right. Pete, welcome back.
Thank you. Didn't know I'd been gone.
Better late than never. All right, that takes us to, item 4 on our agenda. Approval of our minutes of our regular board meeting held on November 12th, 2025. Do we have a motion for our approval of our minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion needed? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving our minutes of our regular board meeting held on November 12th, 2025, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Is it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm already in 2026. Forgive me. Yes.
All right, are we still all approved? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, receive a hearing examiner's report and consider granting, denying, or amending applications for water well permits heard in November 2025 and prior.
Thank you. The report from the public hearing was held on November 11th in reference to receiving any making recommendations for persons who made requests for permits or whether they request for cancellations or modifications of current permits have been prepared. The record from that hearing was left open until November 28th, 2025, receiving additional evidence for any persons who did not appear or failed to leave any information. There are no additional recommendations. We submit them as they are in the report and would like to offer. This time to receive any questions.
Any questions from board members on item 2? I don't see any questions, so is there a motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendations as presented. Is there any discussion needed? And does anybody need to abstain?
Abstain. City President.
I'm sorry.
City President.
All right, any other? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the recommendations, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries with the extension noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to item 6. Consider emergency permits reviewed by the general manager. This, the board knows, is not an action item, but rather an opportunity for the board to ask any questions about those emergency applications that came before the general manager during the past month. So we have 4 listed. Anybody have any questions on it?
I do, sir.
Go ahead.
As you know, I'm not in favor of using well water pump out, put on the ground for irrigation. It's, this permit, the resupply his fish pond and irrigation. Is he using this irrigation for revenue or aesthetic irrigation or? I really don't see any need to put 1 million gallons of water into a fish pond, is what I'm saying. That's my stance on it. So if it's brought to me, I'd like to have just more clarification of why he would need 1 million gallons of water to put in the fish pond.
So it's listed as pond and irrigation because they're that beneficial use, and because of the law, we're put forth the beneficial use, and that's just inside of our rules. He does fall within the 10 million gallon limit, per year, so, being in area 2, if you went above that, he'd be subject to regulatory plan A requirement. The amount for the well, it's a 4-inch well worth 1 million gallons, so he's not, doesn't particular individual need that. But that is a use that the board has determined to be beneficial.
Any other questions? All right, then that takes us to agenda item number 7. Receive a presentation from the Central Harris County Regional Water Authority regarding their groundwater reduction plan.
Operator Marcel here from the Central Harris County Regional Water Authority, and again, just trying to get some updates and status of the GRPs and hear from everybody this time. So appreciate you all being here.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Avery Rubenski, Mr. Chairman, Mr. General Manager, and Director. Avery Rubenski with the Furman Schwartz Page and Hardy to represent the Central Harris County Regional Water Authority. It's an honor to appear before you this morning to provide you an update on behalf of our client. We appreciate the opportunity to let you know how we're doing with respect to the implementation of our GRP. Since it's been quite a few years since I've appeared before you all, and I'm not sure how much you know about Central and why there is this little small regional water authority among these large ones. I want to provide you a quick recap on the history of how we were created, and then I'm going to turn it over to Marcel Coe here with IDS Engineering to provide you with some of the technical information regarding where we are with our GRP. The Central Authority consists of 11 member districts, generally located north of the city of Houston limits, south of FM 1960, primarily west of I-45 and east of State Highway 249 in Harris County. When the North Harris County Regional Water Authority was being created in 1999, the state legislators who had districts that were partially within the city of Houston and partially within Harris County, as part of the negotiation on allowing that legislation to go forward, required their legislative districts to be pulled out of the North Authority. So it left an area that we'll call no man's land for now, where there were approximately 35, 36 districts, as I recall, that were left without an option. I was recruited to assist them along with Marcel's firm in just evaluating what their options were. The options that basically were to go to the city of Houston and join their groundwater reduction plan, or to join the North Harris County Regional Water Authority. In 2001, the West Authority was being created, and it was not quite an option yet for us when we were evaluating all of this. So we essentially, all of the well permittees in that area, of course, had the mandate to be part of a certified groundwater reduction plan by January 1 of 2003. We evaluated all of those options. Essentially, there were 16 districts that provided some funds to study this. They became known as the Central Harris County Water Users Group, or the SHWG, as they affectionately refer to themselves. When that study was presented to them, although my personal opinion was that it would be best for them to join the city or the north, none of these, there were 10 districts at that time out of those 16 who did not want to do that and wanted to create their own authority. So we set about to try and do that, but in 2003, we missed the opportunity with the legislature. There were things going on in politics there that our bill was not advanced. And so we entered into a contract. 11 districts ended up contracting together, created an entity called the Central Harris County Water Users Consortium. And with that, we were able to enter into a contract with the city of Houston, a large block contract, along with the other regional water authorities at that time, the North Harris County and the West Harris County. And we're able to put together a groundwater reduction plan and present it to you and have it approved in early 2003. Then in 2005, with the assistance of our then State Representative Sylvester Turner, who covered part of that area, as well as Senator John Lindsay, we were able to formally create the Central Harris County Regional Water Authority through the legislature and to have all of its contracts, rights, and obligations assigned by the consortium to the authority. We then proceeded to participate in negotiation of many of the contracts you've heard about from our fellow regional water authorities, the construction of the Northeast Water Purification Plant, the first plant, we were participant along with the North Harris County Regional Water Authority in the city, and also the North Harris County Regional Water Authority in the city in a major transmission line. We, of course, also signed a contract to participate in the raw water facilities of the city and ultimately the Loose Bayou River Basin Transfer Project. And then in 2008, we were able to acquire a loan from the Water Development Board prior to the creation of the SWIFT program for $22,050,000, and that allowed us to pay for our share of those initial facilities and to build our internal distribution system to convert the initial districts that were being converted to meet the 30% reduction by 2010. We were fortunate that we were able to do that. We met the mandate in 2010. We then proceeded over the next 15 years, if you will. We have sold an additional approximately $84 million additional bonds since then, all through the SWIFT program, including closing our last bond issue for the 2025 conversion just this morning to complete our own internal distribution system. We are well on our way to achieving the 60% reduction in our current well permit. I'm gonna let Marcel tell you all about that. That's kind of history of how we got here. And before I turn it over, I just want to thank you all very much for your cooperation over the years with us. I go back to Ron Neighbors and his staff many, many years ago, and then of course with Mike and Veronica for many, many years. I just want to thank all of you and your staff for your cooperation and assistance to us over the years. The Central Authority, I always have to say when I present on their behalf, we did not get into this to create some large entity for any political reasons whatsoever. These were just muds in somewhat of a socioeconomic demographics there. This is water for cooking and showering. We don't have golf courses. We don't have the opportunity to do a lot of reclaimed water type situations. We don't have anything like that. We simply provide surface water to achieve the mandate on behalf of the 11-member districts. We are in the process of bringing a 12th in that's currently in the city of Houston's CRP in cooperation with the city, and that must be requested to be brought into the authority. Last thing I'll say about that is we have said from day one that our goal is to meet the mandate of this agency at the lowest possible cost on behalf of our constituents, and that continues to be our goal today. We don't provide any service or include anybody in our GRP, any well permittees outside of those 11 months and soon to be 12. And that's our focus. Thank you very much. Marcel Poe with IES Engineering.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Avery. Chairman, board members, thank you for having us. As Avery mentioned, we were created in 2005 by House Bill 3181. We do have water supply contracts with the city of Houston and facility agreements with the North Harris County Regional Water Authority. We wouldn't be able to do this without our partners. So, as Avery mentioned, our original GRP was approved in 2003. We're currently working under our amended GRP, which was approved in 2014. And currently our water rates are $4.08 per thousand for groundwater and $4.42 per thousand for surface water. As Avery mentioned, our goal has been to keep our rates as low as possible for our ratepayers as we transition to, as we meet the Subsidence District mandates, I think one other thing that we're trying to do with our rates is to have consistency in our increases and have incremental increases instead of having large jumps in our rates. So we've been trying to maintain our rates and incremental increases. So moving down, so this is our GRP, 30%. Our target was 2010. We were able to meet that. A 60% reduction by our current year starting 2025, and 80% 2035. Our initial surface water capacity was 2.12 MGD. We're currently at 7.0 MGD surface water capacity in our system. And the surface water capacities that we have are based on projections from our mud districts, and it's a little bit hard to see on the slide here, but the table on the left were the original projections that we received from our mud districts, and those are the projections that are in our 2014 GRP. And you can see that in 2035, we're about 7.7 MGD, and then we did request updates from our member districts for 2018, and the 2025 projections dropped a little bit, but the 2035 projections went up, and so we're still right around 7.8, 7.9 MGD alternate. So our target in our GRP at 8% in 2035 is about 6.3 MGD. However, with that said, this graph shows our projections, 2010, 2025, 2035. And the red line is basically the increase in projections. But it also shows our actual annual calendar year usage from when we started tracking in 2004 to just last year, 2024. So you can see that our water use is actually remaining fairly level. We had a peak in about 2011 during the drought, right? So that was about a little over 1.8 billion gallons of pumpage, about 5.1 MGD. So I'm just going to briefly touch on our 2010 system. So in 2010, we had 2.12 MGD surface water. We built transmission systems to serve 4 MUDs initially, and then we added MUD 304. MUD 304 was originally part of our 2025 system, but they did ask for early conversion in 2021. We were able to convert them in 2022. We had, as Avery mentioned, we had capacity shares in the existing Northeast Water plant for the city of Houston, some transmission, large diameter transmission lines, the North Harris-Galveston Regional Water Authority pump station, I think it's the Shingle pump station now. And then we constructed about 5.2 miles of internal distribution, and that was funded through TWDB bonds at about $22 million. So this is our annual permit year water pumpage from the start of our permit year in 2010 to just last year, 2024. So we were able to meet the mandate, hit the 30% year after year. And I forgot to mention that in 2010, our projects were delayed. And so our permit year is from June 1 to May 31st. And our 2010 system, we weren't able to actually pump water until August of 2010. But we were still able to meet the 30% mandate, primarily because, if you recall, 2010 was about the start of the 2011 drought, and we started pumping in August, which was a high use period, and so we were able to maximize the surface water that we pumped out. We were able to carry that surface water, maximize the surface water that we were able to pump throughout that period. And so we were able to hit the 30%. If you notice too, the first 3 years, we're right at 30% conversion, and that was a policy decision by the authority. When we first started, we just wanted to make sure that we met the mandate, and so we're making sure that we hit 30%. Our operators were operating the system, making adjustments on a monthly basis to make sure that we're right at 30%. Starting in about 2013, that transitioned to trying to maximize our surface water use, for instance, over conversion credits, because we wanted to plan for the future. We didn't, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to hit the 2025 target. We wanted to build some over conversion credits. At the same time, one of our other districts had some well problems, and so we were able to transition them to 100% surface water. So average for the period between 2010 and 2024, we averaged 39.67% surface water. All right, and so that brings us to our 2025 surface water supply system. And so for 2025, we added an additional 4.88 MGE of surface water capacity. We're in progress of adding additional lines to deliver surface water to Mud 33 and Fallbrook. We have capacity shares in the Northeast Plant Expansion Project, Moose Bayou, the large diameter transmission lines with the City of Houston and North Authority. And we're also right now in progress of constructing 3.6 miles of distribution lines. And as Avery mentioned, we took out additional TWDB bonds, about $4 million to fund all this. So again, we're behind in our 2025 conversion projects, due to a number of factors. So currently we have our initial package 1 line that's going to be delivering water to Fallbrook, and we expect that will be completed by the end of the first quarter of 2026. So, and you got the next slide. So these are the 2025 conversion regional projects that were partnered with the City of North Authority, the West Authority, North Fort Bend Water Authority, and you guys have seen all this before, with the Moose Bayou, the Northeast Plant Expansion Project. The West Harris County and North Fort Bend, they take off and do their own surface water supply line, and then the Central, the City, and the North Authority have the second source line, which delivers surface water does. So, we wouldn't be able to meet our obligations without our authority and city partners. And so that brings us to the current permit year. And is our 2025 permit year. And we were able to actually pump, we increased our surface water use, and we are meeting the mandate at about 64% conversion. The reason we're able to do this without having our projects completed is, one, we early converted Mud 304. So Mud 304 came online in 2022. We're able to maximize the surface water pumpage to the districts that we've already converted, and we're basically sending them close to, some of them 100%, others 95% surface water. And so by doing that, by increasing that, by having cooperation with our member districts, we're able to meet the mandate. And so that brings us to today, and that's all I had. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So I have a question, and that is, even though it sometimes we get accused of not being sensitive to rates, we are very sensitive to rates, and we realize that our regulations have a cost, and we try to, weigh the benefits versus the cost. So have y'all taken out any kind of timeline of what you project your rates to be, say over the next 5-10 years?
Right, so yeah, our financial advisor tracks our rates, and we're projecting, I think he's projecting up to over $5 a thousand possibly. I think that brings up a good point in that, we've been planning for these projects and planning our rates for years. And, although we've been able to meet the mandate, we have had our hiccups. Costs have escalated significantly. Our 2025 system, we had to do some reroutes during design that increased the number of easements that we had and increased the construction costs. But we were able to, I guess, manage that, those rate increases, project and target incremental rate increases as we get to our maximum rate increase.
All right, any other questions from the board members?
Yeah, I was kind of curious, you just said that the costs are going up. Can you tell us where you're seeing costs going up? Is that in your source water, your raw water supply, your transmission, your pumping? What component is causing that to escalate?
So specifically, when I was mentioning cost escalation, it was really in the design of our 2025 system and construction of our 2025 system. COVID happened and construction costs increased significantly. We had to make accommodations to Harris County flood control that impacted our route alignments, and that increased our construction costs. It also increased our easement costs. But we see escalation in costs in the Northeast Water Purification Plant expansion project. Those costs increased significantly since I think in 2015 when the project was went out for GMP. We're talking about a $900 million project. It's now a $1.8 billion project, right? And so those costs have increased significantly. We've had to increase our bond sales, and so our debt service is increasing. And then I think also the new plant, right now we're transitioning to the new plant expansion. It has some new technologies that make impact on the O&M costs, and things like that.
So construction costs are increasing. Is the construction schedule still where you want it to be, or is that falling behind?
No, we've fallen behind. Yeah, so we're about a year behind in our construction schedule. But some of that too is related to.
But that's not impacting your.
That's not impacting our ability right now. So we've been fortunate in that we have enough surface water capacity at this time and enough districts converted that we're pushing out, based almost 100% of the districts that we're converted. We're hitting our 60%.
You're essentially over converted.
Correct. Yeah. And we have, we're fortunate also in that we are a small authority. We have great cooperation with our member districts. Our operators are able to work with their operators, and we're able to maximize that surface water coverage to those districts.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, you have unique characteristics different from, say, the north or the west, in that you're nice and compact versus their spread out.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that helped us too is that the water use in our area has remained fairly constant, right? It hasn't increased the way that our member districts projected, and so we're able to we were planning on ultimately being able to pump out 6.877 million gallons a day of surface water. We just aren't seeing that growth.
And is that because there hasn't been the anticipated development?
I think so, yeah. So I think there hasn't been as much growth in our area been throughout Harris County. We're also a little bit landlocked, and so we have limited, growth opportunity as well.
Do you participate in the conservation credit program?
We do not.
So you're just using early conversion credits?
Right, so we're using, right now, we're banking, over conversion credits. You know, we have, discussed if we aren't able to, meet the mandate, you know, what are our options with credits? You know, possibly, requesting credits transferred from some of our member districts or purchasing credits on the market and things like that. But, you know, we're banking, over conversion credits, and so that's our first line of defense.
Do you foresee having enough credits right now to maintain your program at the level you want it to?
Yeah, I believe so. You know, anything can happen in the future, but that's why we're trying to bank as much over conversion credits as we can. And so we do appreciate that program. And I think the one thing too, you know, we get regular updates from Mike and staff, so that helps us to project out, you know, what we're planning as well. You know, I mean, these projects take years to plan, fund, construct, and so having a regulatory framework that's consistent helps us. You know, and having these regular updates from Mike and the Subsidence District staff helps us to plan for the future as well.
Any other questions? Well, I want to say on behalf of the board, thank you very much for being here. You know, this is helpful for us to, and obviously we've done this with the three authorities, the west and the north before you, because it's important for us to maintain this dialogue and, you know, understand where you guys are in your processes. So we very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
That'll make it.
All right, with that, that takes us to item 8 on our agenda. Consider a resolution approving a groundwater reduction plan submitted by Harris County by number 50.
So we have two groundwater reduction plans on the agenda today. I'm gonna ask Veronica to come up and kind of work through them. The first one is for 150, and Veronica, go ahead and give an overview of that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Today we have Harris County MUD number 50. It is located in northeast Harris County and is outside of the city of Houston city limits and outside of its extraterritorial jurisdiction. It is within regulatory area 2. 20% of a permittee's total water demand can come from groundwater in area 2 unless they have an approved groundwater reduction plan. Now, GRPs in area 2 are different from area 3 because they have to reduce groundwater usage to 20% of total water demand within 15 years of the date the plan is approved. A critical component of the GRP is water conservation and efficiency measures, since they're relying on groundwater as their primary source within the 15-year period. The proposed GRP submitted by the MUD will take them from an approved water conservation plan that they've operated under for the last 15 years and has allowed them to maintain groundwater as their sole source of water without being charged a disincentive fee to an actual groundwater conversion plan. The submitted GRP includes required information outlined in the regulatory plan. These items include surface water feasibility study, source water, timeline, and financing information. The MUD will receive raw water supply from the San Jacinto River through a contract with the San Jacinto River San Jacinto River Authority for an amount that will satisfy the projected conversion requirement. The timeline for completion of the project is 14 years, which is a year under the maximum allowable of 15 years. Financing is planned to be sourced from water use rates, bond issuances, and the Texas Water Development Board funds. The MUD will also continue to provide an annual report on its water conservation plan when renewing its groundwater permit. Should at any time during the 15-year duration of the GRP staff identify issues or concerns with the timeline, progress, or implementation of required actions within the GRP, The GRP can be amended or canceled with board approval. Cancellation of the GRP will remove the MUD's exemption from the regulatory plan, and the full regulatory plan requirements will apply.
And just a little bit of additional history, MUD 50 is one of those that prior to the 99 plan, was part of the hardship exemption for low income, lower income areas. So that was changed in the 99 plan to include groundwater conservation plans for those districts, like that. And one of the advantages of this particular groundwater reduction plan being submitted by MUD 50 is that it moved them from a groundwater conservation plan to a groundwater reduction plan, which reduces the amount of groundwater used. Well, this particular one was served by the rules committee earlier this year, and was unanimously recommended to adopt.
So moved.
So, well, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions about the proposal? Any discussion needed? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have item 9, consider a resolution approving a groundwater reduction plan submitted by Harris County MUD number 599.
Okay, so this groundwater reduction plan is for Harris County MUD 599. It's a new district consisting of 2,125 acres of land also located in northeast Harris County, but in regulatory area 3. There is existing acreage that is presently being used for agricultural purposes and provided with raw water from the Sanderson River. The submitted GRP meets the criteria required for an Area 3 GRP. It outlines the conversion from 40% groundwater to 80% surface water, that would be in 2035, and includes water demand projections, timelines, and alternative water supply and financing mechanisms. The source of raw water is Lake Houston. The MUD has an actual water right that is currently being used for the agricultural irrigation, and the initial build-out will aggregate this use with groundwater use for new development. The MUD will also utilize non-potable reuse and is working with regional partners to develop additional potable water to satisfy the projected conversion requirements. The timeline for completion is within the regulatory timeframe. Financing is planned to be sourced from GRP rates and Water Development Board loans and grants. The submitted GRP includes water conservation efforts and a water conservation plan. If the GRP is approved, during the annual permit renewal process, staff will evaluate the progress of the GRP. If staff identifies any issues or concerns with the timeline, progress, or implementation of required action within the GRP can be amended or canceled with board approval. Cancellation of the GRP would remove the MUD's exemption from the regulatory plan, and the full regulatory plan requirements would apply.
So moved.
Second.
Again, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussions regarding this one? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, consider a resolution approving a contract with Kip Averett of Averett and Associates to assist the district with legislative affairs for the period ending December 31, 2027.
Move for approval. Second.
Anybody have any questions?
I do, first off, no offense, Greg, but only a lawyer can write a contract with no deliverables. Secondly, what is the difference between W Public Affairs and Everett Associates? I'm not a big fan of lobbying from one government agency to any government agency, but, so we're paying two different fees, two different lobbying firms.
We are, and they work together in unison, for the district, at the Capitol primarily. So there's a teamwork and the bottom line is there, we get multiple feet on the ground in Austin during the interim and during session. With the amount of interest that the legislature has taken in recent sessions with the district and our regulatory work that we do, we added additional resources during the last session, and that worked really well, and that was W there. And I don't see the level of interest at the Capitol when it comes to the work that we do here reducing anytime soon. So maintaining that same level of effort, to me, is incredibly important for us to make sure that everyone at the Capitol understands what we do, why we do it, and the path forward to complete our legislative mandate. Skip Everett, was the chair of Senate Natural Resources, well-respected at the Capitol, leader in water policy for many years. Gertie Wilson, who's W Affairs, used to work with Skip in Avery Associates. She started her own firm, but she is well versed in what we do and our mission. She provides support to Skip, and they work in unison at the Capitol. So we get both of those working to educate, provide us with, they educate on our behalf. They provide updates to me that I will share with the board on a monthly basis related to what's going on in the Capitol. Actually, it's more often than that, but that's basically when you guys see it. And then ultimately provide, we have discussions and work through possible courses of action at the Capitol when it comes to that. But a lot of it is education. And the biggest advantage that we have with having folks in Austin is that we have somebody on the ground that can go answer a question, be somewhere there rather than having me have to be over there all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I try to make a quick comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Based on what we've already seen in the Zoom and the recent special sessions, I believe this next legislative session is going to be the busiest groundwater legislation session we've seen since 1999, maybe ever. We've already seen bills filed, doing everything from repeal to capture to say limitations on how permits can be sold or where they can be, where that water can go to in terms of limiting exports. We have multiple problems all around the state. We have a problem in Purification County with Corpus Christi trying to export it from Corpus Christi. We have Corpus Christi already pumping water in Nueces County directly to the river. We have the Kyle Bass situation up in Northeast Texas. We've got Kinney County's got its own problems. We have a lawsuit between GWRA and the Gonzales District. We have a lawsuit between LCRA and Los Pines District. All of that's going to come to a head during the Zoom during this next legislative session. I think it's going to be extremely important for us to be able to continue to do what we have been doing, for us to have a presence in Austin. And by the way, just full disclosure, I have a stating contract with the council because I spend so much time in Austin, and I do occasionally talk to people up there about this district. I also have to register as a lobbyist on behalf of this district. The law requires me to do so. There are penalties if I'm up there talking to people around the Subsidence District, and I'm not a registered lobbyist on their behalf. And the interesting thing that happened when they originally adopted the lobby rule is they made it illegal for a lobbyist to guarantee results. So,
Results and deliverables can generally do.
yes. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why these lobby contracts are so vague, is because the lobbyists cannot promise anything, and certainly cannot make payment of their contract or actually accomplishing anything. So I'm afraid the lobbyists had a hand in writing the law that would prohibit them from doing that. In any case, a quick story about one thing that happened where our presence did help save us from having to go through all of the extra effort that the other districts have had to go through in terms of setting desired future conditions and being limited by so much by the bottom available groundwater that comes as a result of that planning process. That whole process was set by 5 groundwater conservation managers in Senator Ken Arbush's office, 3 of whom, by the way, work from the Panhandle. who agreed that this should apply to the entire state. And the fact that we had people in Austin working on that, they were able to get with St. Congress to make sure that the subsidence districts were cut out of that process so that we can continue to do what we have always done that has worked so very well here, without having to completely revamp our entire regulatory system, in trying to achieve a MAG, as a model over I want. So there, it worked very, very well. And all the districts that didn't have a precedent, right after that bill passed in 2005, were very unhappy. And wished that they had also had someone in the room at the time. And most of them now have higher lobbyists to make sure that doesn't happen. While I think that having lobbyists is, if you will, a necessary evil, I do think it's absolutely necessary, especially for small communities, rural Texas, who otherwise are not going to have any voice in Austin at all. This state used to be a rural state. It used to have the majority of the legislature made up by rural representatives that they control, which is why a lot of, that's why we have the agricultural tax laws that we have. That's why we have a whole lot of things that help rural Texas. That's no longer the case. The urban areas now control the state legislature. And without the smaller communities and rural areas having the ability to send people to Austin, they really wouldn't have any voice at all. Anyway, I do think it's extremely important that we have a presence there. I think Kip and Gertie do a great job for us. Gertie was very helpful to Mike and I during this last session, and I would recommend that you approve those contracts. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or discussion?
Could you kind of define our lobbying team, Kip and Gertie and Mike and?
So, for the folks that actually interact with the legislature, you guys will pass a resolution at some point designating me the spokesperson for the district. I coordinate the distribution of educational materials and have meetings that are coordinated through the relationships that we gain through our governmental affairs folks, which includes Senator Averett, Gertie Wilson, Casey Hughes, our Director of Communication, plays an important role on our governmental affairs side, both locally and to some extent in Austin. So all those things kind of piece together. But a lot of the work that we have done and that we will certainly will continue to do, is to provide education on what's been accomplished, what we're doing, what we're planning on doing in the future. I think one of the biggest things that challenges us every day is the misinformation and bad information that gets put out there about the work that we do. So getting that information out there is incredibly important. And that's generally the roles that everybody wants. We schedule meetings with everybody that's interested in what we do, or interested in groundwater. It's not just local, statewide. We have strong relationships with the leadership in the Capitol, and we have that because of the work that Greg and I and Casey and Kip and Gertie have done over the years to help build those relationships. Those relationships are really what makes that happen.
Bless you.
Any other questions? All right, and we have a motion on the table and a second. I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with one member opposed. We have then item 11, consider a resolution approving a contract with W Public Affairs to represent the district in matters before state agencies and the legislature during the period ending December 31st, 2027. So, to a certain extent, we've already been discussing this, it's along the same lines. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on this particular contract? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the W Public Affairs contract, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? carries with one member opposed. That takes us to item 12. Consider a resolution authorizing the execution of a joint funding agreement with the United States Geological Survey to provide for cooperative research programs for the collection and publication of water resources and subsidence data for the year ending December 31st, 2026, and authorizing expenditure of funds. Mike, what's this?
Yeah, so the USGS has been a cooperative partner with the Subsidence District since 1975. The USGS collects water level data, sensometer compaction data, and publishes that data annually for us as part of our annual operations. This is a collaborative and a cooperative effort, not just between the USGS and the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District, but it also includes the Fort Bend Subsidence District, the City of Houston, the Missouri County Groundwater Conservation District, and the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. The U.S. Geological Survey is the most widely verified and referred science agency in the world. They've been doing it for over a century. They wrote the book on how to measure water levels, how to document them, how to report them. And that information is incredibly vital for us as we use that to help us gauge the impact of our regulatory plan and changes in water use on the aquifer system and ultimately on compaction and subsidence. This data set is used not only to evaluate what's happening today, but also as a compilation of all the previous data sets to help us verify and calibrate models that we use to predict the future. The cost for this is unchanged from last year, and it was included in the 2026 budget which you approved last month.
So moved. Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion needed?
I understand this is the same that it was last year, but how do those sharing percentages derive?
It evolved over the years. When the cooperative water program was initially developed way back when this project started, that was designed to be a 50-50 match. Back in the early 2000s, with the cuts in federal funding, that match went down for different programs, and the availability of cooperative water dollars were decreased nationwide. As a result, the USGS, the federal dollars that are leveraged in this program, in this particular funding agreement, have been reduced over time. But ultimately, the amount of cooperative water dollars are determined by the federal interest in the work that we do. There are other projects in the state where the USGS is doing work where there are no federal dollars.
So I guess we're looking different than anything out there.
Well, I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily luck. We have the fourth largest port, and it's fourth largest city, largest port. We have a lot of federal interest in our area, so there's a lot of need to understand what's going on here.
All right, any other questions? Then I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the joint funding agreement, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, consider a resolution approving a groundwater credit policy.
So what you have in front of you today was discussed at a rules committee meeting earlier this fall, and ultimately was voted unanimously to be brought to you today for your consideration. The district groundwater credits that are available to permittees, or actually to really permittees and others interested in groundwater in the area, come in different flavors over time. They have had different designations. Some of those credits are no longer no longer being distributed. But right now, you hear a lot about overconversion credits. You hear about conservation credits, or Series B credits, or education credits. All those are the same thing. But what this policy and document is intended to do is to clarify those items so that everybody can speak in the same language, but then also provide examples on how those credits may be used. They can be used. This be used for staff to be able to explain to permittees how credits might be able to be used, and also used for my staff to be able to, work through the process to see how credits might be used in the most efficient way. What the policy also does is, take what is currently a hard expiration date for the Series B credits, which are the only credits, well, for the education credits, which are Series A, which are no longer, being issued in the Series B. And changes that expiration process from a hard stop going from 100% to 0 in year 20 to a slope, whereas year 20, you use 100% of that credit, but in year 21, you go to 80%, year 22, you go to 60%, and so on until they're fully expired. Now, what that allows is that, for those that were participating in the program that were, accumulating credits, on the previous timeline, the 2020 timeline that was, ultimately extended with our 2013 regulatory plan by 5 years in Area 3. What it does is allow those credits to have a little bit longer lifespan to be utilized during this 2025 conversion, if that was their original intent. That's the only real change in our current policy that we have with our groundwater credits. It's all documented in here, and it's intended just to provide some direction and clarity on how credits can be used, how they can be transferred, and how they might expire.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any questions or discussion needed? All right, thank you for your explanation, Mike. I'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the policy, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, consider a resolution reviewing the investment policy and investment strategies of the district.
So moved.
Second.
So,
There's no change from the investment policy from last.
and just so, we're clear for all board members, state law requires the district to have adopted an investment policy for its funds, and it requires us to review it each year, even if we are making no changes. So apparently we have reviewed it, and some of them changes are necessary.
Finance committee.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion needed? All in favor of approving the resolution reviewing our investment policy and investment strategy, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. General Manager's report. Mike, you're up.
Oh, no, we're not quite there yet, but hope, everybody here and everybody in the audience has a happy holiday, a joyous holiday, a safe new year, and we get to see y'all again, everybody again in January. The district will be closed, for some days around Christmas and on New Year's Day. Our January board meeting right now, we've had the West Authority, North, and Central Authority come give us practice on DRP. We're currently planning on having the City of Houston come talk about their DRP at the January meeting.
Who's coming?
Well, right now it's planned for Drew Molly to come speak. There is a conflict every day at this time between our meeting and the monthly meeting of the Local Water Authority.
Oh, we can visit that now? What, been 15 years in trying it?
So we'll see how that works out, but tentatively, we're planning on having the City of Houston here, in January, so that'll be good as well. Everywhere in the water industry, things are kind of winding down, people are getting things done for the end of 2025, and getting ready to move into 2026. I do want to mention that there was some additional information that came out on, the Proposition 4, that was approved by voters at the November meeting. Prop 4 provides funding for infrastructure, but as was expected, but maybe it wasn't entirely articulated to everybody. There's going to be some time before those dollars actually hit the landscape. I mean, there's some rules that have to be developed, have to have the fund and all that. And right now, the estimate is 4 to 5 years before any of those funds actually get moved out and start moving dirt. So something to keep in mind if you're watching that and are interested in that. I also want to pass on some information that really kind of leads back to some things that we discussed on numerous occasions here, particularly related to the annual report and water supply and water conversion in the district. You know, we've talked for many years about the subsidence rates out in far western Harris County, particularly around the city of Katy. We know that area has been consistently one of those areas that have been, big red dot, over 2 centimeters per year. And for those that don't want to deal with the metric system, that's approaching about a foot per decade, which is considerable. Did find out earlier, a few months ago, that the city of Katy and the West Harris County Regional Water Authority have reached an agreement to bring alternative water out to the city of Katy. So that's a great accomplishment by those two entities. And I think you're going to see that in the data ultimately when that all comes to finality. But it's a great move forward for water supply in our area. And we want to certainly appreciate the effort on both sides there to make that happen. So that's great. That's great news. Great way to finish the year on that. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We are going to be presenting at the American Geophysical Union here next week, talking about the Spring Creek watershed study, and also talking about the 100 years of subsidence and the regulatory plan of the district and the successes that it's had over the last year. With that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions for Mike?
I do want to mention one last thing. You do have a little package in front of each of you. Inside of there is a mug. We had to replace all of our mugs because they were very old and they were starting to deteriorate, and we've had new branding since then. So
We got the old.
we got the old mugs. Yeah, out there for the staff. Exactly.
Did you watch it?
And then I will also mention that one last thing, the Fort Bend Subsidence District is having their meeting later on today, and they will be discussing their regulatory plan and then changes to their regulatory rules related to GRP requirements. One of those proposed changes will be to require an annual report by GRP participants or GRP managers to lay out the progress that they have on their plan, so that staff can compare that to what they're actually together. And fully expect there to be some amendments to GRPs there as they begin to work through how things change.
Do we have that?
So we require them to submit the normal information that other permittees require for their permit, but we do not require them to report on the progress of their GRP on an annual basis. But it's certainly something we could consider adding to our GRP. It might be worthwhile considering that we used to have one large GRP that's behind their curve.
All right. Any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. So that takes us to our consultation with our general counsel. Right?
Thank you, Chair members. Not a big report to update you last month on what's happening. Hesitating legislation-wise. I'm expecting to hear from the legislature on payment charges sometime in late January. My list will be on that. At this point, obviously, we expect groundwater issues to be on both the House and Senate committee hearing study reports. And again, we've heard everything from people who captured the possibility of statewide regulation of groundwater. So pretty much everything's on the table for this next session, and we'll have to be very cognizant of that and work with folks to make sure that whatever happens, we're going to continue to do the great job we've been doing for the last 50 years. But the issue wise, nothing's actually happened other than more lawsuits have been filed. There's been more controversies all around the state. I expect more lawsuits to be filed after that. We just had, in San Patricio County, we have Corpus Christi up there looking to buy take over an existing permit for about 26 or 28,000 acre feet. And this last week, that district received 2 applications for an additional 24,000 acre feet of water. To sell it to somebody someplace someday. So it's just kind of random all over the state. People need busy. We have to answer any questions y'all have.
Any questions for Greg?
Thank you.
All right.